Yeah, for me, happiness is, well, I'd say for the Stoics, happiness is a smoothly flowing life. It is a life that's, just filled with peace, filled with enjoyment. Things are happening and we are not resisting life. Life happens the way that it happens due to cause and effect. Do we have a problem with it or do we not? And if we want to be happy, we don't want to have a problem with how life played out. That doesn't prevent us from taking action to move things in a different direction. That's a common misunderstanding. But yeah, it's what we all want. If you follow all of our actions back, like why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? You keep following it back, you're going to get to happiness, peace, and happiness.
Man, I love that the fact that you have a very solid definition. I am not a stoic myself, but whenever you bring the stoic philosophy to the table, I always enjoy it, man, because there is something to gain from a bunch of men who sit around. Like in my mind, they sit around and they're just thinking all the time. Is that what that famous like thinker guy is from the stoic community?
No, I don't know. I actually had one of those and I was like, I don't need this stupid thing. So I took it to Goodwill. But yeah, I think that was just a statue. It's called The Thinker, but I can't remember, what was the deal behind it.
Yeah. Well, that's funny that you had that, bro. What's fascinating is as you were talking about happiness, it clicked in my mind that we were talking about how there's a for me, I was noticing that happiness may no longer be my goal, the aim for me. But it's more awareness in each and every moment. And happiness may be maybe the byproduct of that, but the reason why I'm noticing that in my life, man, is I'm speaking to, I guess a little background, struggled for years with anger, with, like I guess you could even call it toxic masculinity. And I say it that way because masculine, there's nothing wrong with masculinity, but when we start looking in the direction of trauma or like a bunch of anger and aggression, there like it starts seeping into using our masculine, and masculine has nothing to do with being a man or a woman. It's a type of energy. Uh, but as we utilize that energy effectively, it really helps us to get things done. And so where I fell in the trap was I thought I needed to change the things that were outside of me, right? Like I need to change the circumstance. I need to change um, the everybody else's feelings, the way they were looking at me, whatever it was. And when I couldn't control those things, I would get upset, I would get frustrated, and that would cause me to lash out at the people I care about. That would cause me to act in ways that weren't in alignment with who I was. And over time, I've recognized, like, even in the moment, like, oh, this isn't who I am. And now this is a lifelong journey. Me and Jason have been on it together for like 4 or 5 years now. I'm not sure, other than the stories that I tell you, Jason, have you ever seen me, like, I guess, like angry, like people like, I could never see you angry. I'm like, yeah, but
Yeah, not really. No, I mean, I don't know that you've ever been angry at me. I've sensed some annoyance, which I know you've sensed annoyance or shortness with me.
oh, for sure.
As we talk about things, it's like, that's bound to happen. But I think we have a good understanding of each other, and we know that you're dealing with whatever you're dealing with. I'm dealing with whatever I'm dealing with. We know it's the way that you're seeing things, the way I'm seeing things, so we give each other grace in that. And that's one of the greatest benefits of understanding how the mind works. So if my wife's in a mood and I got to put on that song that goes she in her mood, no, I don't do that when she's upset, but I can understand that she's going through whatever, the way that she's seeing the world, this situation, whatever it is, she's bothered right now. And I know that That happens to me too. So we just kind of give each other space in those moments, and that makes a big difference in relationship versus how we used to do it. Which you think about how whoever's listening to this, think about how you do it in your relationship, and that's probably how we used to do it in ours. It's kind of like, well, what's your problem today? As if that would even help.
Bro, like that's what leads to more happiness is that recognition that you're talking about, right? Like, is this working? I know you talk about this a lot about this as well. Is like, is this working in my life? And if it's not working in my life, why am I doing it? And that's even true. Like, so last night, I get off a call. I'm in like I don't want to say a Zen space, my friend, but I was in, I was in a fine space, and then there it is, instant aggression from somebody. I sense aggression, and instead of pushing into that, instead of getting upset by that, like I just went and played a video game. Like I stepped away, and before it would have felt necessary to sit there and engage with that person. And then even if I went and stepped away, I would have still been consistently thinking about, man, what should I say? How should I say it? This, that, and the other. But ultimately, man, as you know, as you're speaking about, is when we start to slow down, start to notice our thoughts. We haven't even got there yet, but we just become aware of who we are being in the moment. That's how our life gets better in ways that we can't predict. Because I remember it's me and you, man, and we're talking about, you know, getting upset about, burnt toast, getting getting upset about like I remember being upset about, my significant other, doing something that I didn't want them to do, and then not understanding why it is that they didn't want to listen to me at the time. But that's because I wasn't listening to their point of view. Everybody has their own point of view. So it's so important to like start looking in that direction, man. I appreciate you illuminating that, man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that you and I feel like we've been focusing on that a lot lately is understanding that everybody has to be operating. I mean, they are, right? You can't operate on another person's perspective and you can't escape your own perspective. So you're stuck with the way that you're seeing the world. You're stuck with your perspective. And Epictetus, he's a Stoic philosopher, and he says, when we see differently, we'll act differently. And that is a change in perspective, right? That's changing our minds. And it's not like you can just instantly do that. You have to be able to see like, oh wow, the way I was viewing this, that wasn't right. The way I thought this person should have been acting. I mean, right now it seems ridiculous to think that somebody else should have been acting the way I think they should have been acting. How can they act on my opinions? They have to act on their own opinions. So, yeah, that's a huge piece there. I did want to bring it back to the question that you asked, is it working for my life? And I might say, is it optimal? Is there a better way to do that? And I know we were talking earlier today about self-improvement and things like that. I mean, yes, we can be present, we can accept how things have played out, you know, and we brought up Byron Katie's quote, if you love your story, you love your life. And that for me is the finish line. It's just that we don't really create that story. That story is created via our perspective. So, for me, I guess I'd say self improvement does make sense because as we go through life, and we're doing things, it's just going to occur to us like, well, that didn't really make sense the way I did it. I guess, I shouldn't set my glass water bottle so close to the edge because it fell and broke. And that's kind of where I'm seeing things from a self improvement perspective.
Yeah, I feel like there's something there where it's like I was saying, awareness leads to self discovery, and that awareness leads to then happiness of the growth. I don't know if there was something there that we disagreed on, or if I just misunderstood your frame.
Yeah, I guess it was, because there is that toxic side of self-improvement where it's like, you get so hard on yourself because you need to fix this, you need to fix that, you need to fix this. And I don't feel like that's the healthy way to go. It's seeing where we're at, and then like you said, the awareness of it, seeing where we're at, seeing like, okay, the way I responded in this situation, um like Sid Banks, he created the three principles, and that's the coaching program that Danny Cobbin and I did. And you know, um, he says follow the feeling, and I think for a while we were like, what the hell does that mean? That was a cool saying. It's like, yeah, I could put this on a bumper sticker, but what does it really mean? And for me right now, what makes sense is that means follow the feeling. Like, okay, my daughter did this. I snapped at her, or, I kind of jumped on her about it. And later I'm reflecting on it, it popped into my mind, and it's kind of like got that ick feeling to it. Follow the feeling that shows me, okay, I don't feel good about that. Not that I don't feel good about how it happened. I don't feel good about acting that way in the future. So that shows me there's something that I'd like to see differently so that my perspective could change, right? And maybe that's just kind of reflecting on, I wonder what she was thinking in this situation. I wonder what her motivation was. I wonder what her reasons were, and maybe explore that with her so that I can have a better understanding of her perspective, not from a judgmental point of view, but just to understand how she was seeing in the world so I can ask her questions, and then perhaps she can see things differently, and then we both from there kind of naturally get better.
Yeah, man. I hear a little bit of the distinction between self-awareness and self-centeredness. Now, in a way, each and every one of us has been self-centered because how can we not be, right? We grow up, everything in life is about, like, is fed through our senses, right? Like, if I talk to someone, I have to understand them through them, but through my senses, my understanding of them. And I think that until you hear something, like, you don't have to listen to your thoughts, you don't have to continually go down the pathway of what your thoughts, where they take you, even though they look real. Like, let's get real, they look super real. But that's when we become, that self-awareness piece is what I'm hearing you say, is like shifting out of that, okay, well, this is about me. And like, and you said love yourself, love your life, right? Like, is it love your story, love your life, love your story, love your life. And it's like, that could be seen in a self-centered way where it's like, well, I got to make sure everybody is taking care of me, and I'm taken care of. But there's also the fact that the sun goes up and down that you don't control. There's the grass growing, trees. There's the fact that there's people on the other side of the earth that are doing stuff that you have no control over. Like, being aware of those things allows you to navigate your life in such a way that allows you as a parent to put concepts down, to be in front of your child, to guide yourself whenever you're at work through situations with other clients or with other coworkers. Is, yeah, yes, we want to be happy in some ways, but sometimes, Jason, I'd love for you to speak to this, going for the thing that makes you happy in the moment may not lead to that long-term joy and success that you're actually looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an important distinction. And one that I bring up to my daughter because, like, hey, how was your day today? Did you have fun? Did you enjoy it? Because that's what's important. But the distinction does need to be made. I think there's some value in it to say, yes, the chocolate bar would be amazing, right? But you eat too many chocolate bars, your stomach hurts in 3 hours, right? So you don't only want to focus on instant gratification. You also, and that's when we're judging, when our mind is automatically making these decisions on which way to go. it's helpful to see, hey, I do need to plan for the future. I want to retire at a certain point. It might not make sense to spend money the way that I've been spending money, even though it's going to be, super exciting to go out to a fancy dinner tonight. So it's just like you said, it's an awareness of those things. And I think it's really too is an awareness of your own values. And that's I find myself not giving people advice, direct advice, like what should I do in this situation? I really can't tell you because I don't know your values. I don't know what's important to you. Maybe spouse is cool to have, but it's not the end all be all. Maybe there's other things that are more important to you. So what I do is explore those things with people to get them to take a look at their values so their mind can get a little bit more clear on, just kind of weighing things out, the pros and the cons, and then better decisions are going to be made from that space. That's been my experience anyway.
Yeah, man, the turnaround could be hard, or the turnaround, and I'm saying from the current life, the thing that you're doing to, switching it up, trying to do something different. It feels like you're doing a 180. You're turning completely around and you're trying to walk the other direction. And oftentimes it's a 1, 2, 3 degree shift that happens day in and day out that leads to this like a different persona, different person, different feel when it comes to life, if you will. And I think that is valuable to recognize that going through these things builds character. Like we could dissect what it means to have character all day long, but ultimately, like as you're saying with values, like on a day in and day out, a day in and a day out basis, if we can slow down, we can see what's happening in awareness. We can see where our mind is taking us in the moment. We may not be able to do anything in that moment about it, but that shift that happens and knowing that that's the direction I actually want to go, it's worth it in the end. It's worth it. And the only thing that keeps us from that in some ways is when we start getting into that self-centeredness, because that self-centeredness leads us into our ego. And our ego is our five senses. And this has got to be about me. And it's gotta happen the way I need it to happen. And that's when we start suffering. That's when we start going down this rabbit hole of, you know, I'm moving in a direction that I'm not happy with, but I want to do something different.
Funny you bring up self-centeredness because there's something called psychological egoism. And basically, it's like all of our actions go back to, they stem from a place that benefits us. So, get on this podcast to chat with you, right? What are my motivations? Well, I care about our friendship, or I care about helping people with their happiness, or I'm bored today, or whatever it is. I volunteered to be a driver for the food shelf. So I drop off like once a week. My wife and I will go, we'll pick up a couple boxes, and we drop it off to whoever they send us to. And that's for me. Yes, I'm doing it to help somebody out. I feel like it's a good cause. So so I go do it, but it brings me joy knowing that I'm being selfless or I'm helping another person in their life benefit. So, ultimately, I do think it always comes back to us in bringing us that joy and satisfaction. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in a way, talking a little bit about homeostasis, right? Like the beer, bringing the body coming back to your natural state a little bit. Is that a little bit where we're at?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe say a little bit more about that.
Just like in our internal environment, what I'm kind of hearing you say a little bit and then feeding it through some filters or whatever is uh wherever our internal environment is, we're always going to come back to that center. So as long as we don't, if we're not looking in the direction of the things that we actually want, we're going to consistently be looking, um, for a lack of a better word, uh, attached to the vibrations of the outside world. Like that's whether that's going after fame, after money, going after like things that don't actually bring that true joy. And I think what I hear you saying is that self-discovery, that looking in the direction of the higher self, the higher good, is a way to move the internal thermostat, if you will, to a new set point. Maybe not.
Yeah. Well, interesting you bring up fame, money, things like that, because the Stoics, that's a big thing for them. They call those externals. And an external is anything that we don't control. So when we see those things, the reason we chase those things is because our mind has judged them as good, right? So, you know, yes, I would rather be healthy than unhealthy. I would rather get the promotion than not get the promotion. What I've found that gets us into trouble is setting our hopes on an outcome when we don't control that outcome. So there's 10 people going for the promotion. You can study, you can do as best as you want. I mean, you could try your hardest, you could suck up to the boss, and you could still not get the promotion. And actually, my daughter yesterday, she was looking at the weather. She's like, "Oh, it'd be so awesome if we get a snow day tomorrow. It's gonna be -4 degrees with the wind chill, all these things." And she's like, "They shouldn't have school." And I just reminded her that, like, yeah, it would be cool if there was a snow day, but it's not up to us how those things work out. So we don't want to set our hearts on these things happening. Why? Because it's going to lead to disappointment. If our mind judges this outcome as so good, which means the opposite is so bad, and it doesn't happen, then we're going to be upset. So for the Stoics, those things are all considered indifference. So we're protecting ourselves from those unhealthy negative emotions.
Yeah, basically the yoga philosophy, or the yoga yama, where it's talking about non-attachment, and the attachment to uh, external things leads to desire, and that desire that type of desire leads to suffering. I'm using the word suffering loosely here. Um, but I do think that there's something there about like when we're attached to an idea, or attached to a way of being, or a thing being a certain way. That's how we lead over time to that toxic masculinity that we talked about, that toxic interaction with your environment, whatever that is. And I'm using toxic as in not beneficial to your overall health and well-being. Now, so I think that that's super cool. That once we start detaching, I think that's something that also is talked about in Stoic philosophy, is once we start detaching from things, and feeling as if our senses are the only way for us to know something, there's a deeper level of understanding, of consciousness that's available to us. And oftentimes we can only hear that through, as we bring that back to the beginning of our conversation, is awareness in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds exactly what I'm talking about with, not being attached to an outcome. And you can see too, it's like, if I judge this outcome so good, so highly, my mind does that. And I make the distinction of me versus my mind because it's just happening through my perspective. So if, getting the promotion is so important and my mind values it so highly, well, it kind of makes sense to flatten somebody's tire so they're late for work, right? To make them look
Mm.
bad. So yeah, there's that whole nother level of, morality in that. Um, that leads us to do these things. It's like, would you ever rob a bank? No, I would never do that. I'm not a criminal. And it's like, well, if your daughter was hungry, would you do it? It's like, well, no. Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, then yeah, of course, because we have good reasons for the things that we do. And that's why the Stoics focus on correcting our judgments. We need right reason in order to make the right decisions. And of course, that's a whole thing in Buddhism too, right? It's like right thinking, right speech, and that, and I feel like that's probably the same. Although I'm not too familiar with that.
It's enough of the same, man, where it's like you start to see that all of these ancient traditions, whatever it is, wherever you go study, are pointing us to the same thing. It's just like, what's your flavor, right? Like, Jason, you've grown up differently than I have. I've grown up differently than each and every one of you out there. And because of that, I'm going to do certain things that don't look true for you to do, and vice versa. But I do love what we talked about originally in our conversation about there are some fundamental things that connect us all as human beings that really, once we start to see those things, we can start to take our individual we can start to take our individualness in the direction that best suited for us. But there's that base, that foundation of knowing that if you want to find more joy and happiness in your life, it doesn't always come through doing the thing that in the moment feels right. Right. My thinking isn't always telling me the truth. It's telling me the thing that seems like the best story in the moment. And sometimes that story feels great and sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, that's when we investigate the story. And if we're investigating that story whenever it doesn't feel great and we're just noticing what doesn't feel great about it, that awareness takes us to the next level. And each and every day, man, it's a slow process. It's a pain. Okay, in some ways, it's a painful process, right? Like I don't think that the butterfly goes in the chrysalis, and then just feels great. I heard that it turns to goop. Right? I'm pretty sure the caterpillar isn't excited about being goop. Once it has to break free from the chrysalis, right? It breaks free. The wings are stronger because of it. All of the challenge that had to happen, had to occur, allows for that beautiful butterfly. So I would love to talk a little bit about how we make that process effortless. I didn't know if you wanted to speak a little bit to that or if you want me to just keep on rolling.
Yeah. Well, I did want to say that, we get in these modes like you're talking about with awareness. You get in these modes like the last few days have been heightened state. I sent Danny a gif of the Hulk. I guess he was trying not to turn into the Hulk. I felt like that's where I was at. But the beautiful thing is, talking to my wife, she's saying these things, and my mind is thinking these things, and it's thinking like, oh, I could say this right now, but it's like, I know what's upsetting me is my own judgments. I know it's my own mind that's doing this. So I create less damage in the world. And that's another thing that's so powerful in understanding the mind, because while these are happening, you just become more aware. You're not really just the programming is not just playing out like in the Matrix, right? You realize you're in the Matrix. You know that's happening. You can't really do too much about it in the moment, but you can see, like, okay, this is what my mind is trying to tell me is a good idea, but let me be a little skeptical of it. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Has that been your experience as well?
I feel like as I become more aware in the moment, like, so this is happening to me the other day. I mean, today, the other day, the day before the other day, and I'm pretty sure the day before the day before the other day, this was happening too, bro. And every other day before that too, where like I say something to someone, and that someone, in whatever respect, whatever capacity, doesn't hear me, doesn't recognize that they, or doesn't note that they hear me, uh, doesn't follow my guidance or whatever it is, and I instantly want to get upset, or if they do something wrong, I instantly want to be like, well, see if you would have done it this way. And it's like a wrestling almost with myself because I've asked people actually, like, what do you do in the moment whenever you want to say something to someone, but you know it's not gonna change anything for the better, but like you feel this like it's like my under my skin, it's burning, bro. It feels like the ants are crawling, whatever. But it's like I've now seen that whatever that he is, I need to hold on to. Previously, I was just gonna go spit it on whoever it was, right? Like, oh, how dare you, right? And now it's like, yeah, I can ask the question, like, what do you do? And it's like, it's nothing there's nothing you can do, right? Like, that person has done the thing. You can say whatever you want to. The thing is already done. Can't change it. But like in my mind, it's like, ooh. But if they just did it like this, there wouldn't have been any issue. But they didn't. So that's what I was saying the other day, where I just walked away. Before I thought that that would be a pansy move. I don't know if we could say that these days, but like I thought that that wouldn't be. That's not how you handle a relationship. Gotta handle it there. Then you gotta say something, or else you're screwing yourself over. But it's like I could see my significant other is going through something too. Like they wouldn't even respond that way, bro, if they weren't already going through something. Like because they're mentally tough too. Like in a good space, in a good space. I think another thing is in a good space. I get to act however I want to act, and they're just like, oh, I love that guy. He's so cool. But like you said earlier, like the other way around don't always go that way, right? Like there's something happens with them, and I'm ready to judge them. I'm ready to beat them up. I'm ready to not any longer. But this was my experience for a very long time. Like uh, somehow we condition men to think this is how we're supposed to operate. Because I've talked to other men. I'm not the only one. But this is the circumstance that plays out. This is just a one rendition of it. And then noticing, man, like, oh, like, what have we been taught? What were we taught as kids, man? Like, how the heck is it that I'm 40 years old and I'm just now recognizing that whatever that heat is inside of you, bro, like that's you. That ain't them.
Yep. And that's in my experience, that's the effect of that strong desire. Whether that is I need this to happen the way that I want because I'm not getting what I want. And Epictetus, he says passion, which is unhealthy, negative, is I would say a harmful negative emotion, is the result of a frustrated desire. You're not getting what you want. That causes you to be upset. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough, and the whole like pride thing, I can feel it dying in me, because it's like this is just my perspective. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just my perspective. They have their own perspective, like we talked about earlier. I don't need mine to be right. But that's also the benefit of dropping a lot of these desires. It's like I don't really give a crap how it works out. I was walking through the mall today. We're doing some mall walking because it's like freezing outside. And they got these shoes in there, you got UGG boots, and it's like $129. And I look down, I got my $27 sneakers on. And that was a sense of joy for me to know that like and I'm not saying anybody shouldn't buy these things. You have to buy them if that's what looks true to you. I was just enjoying the freedom of not even being pulled toward buying these products. And what happens when you don't buy products? You can keep that money in your bank account. And when you got money in your bank account, you don't need to work as hard. So just watching the chain go backwards like that and just seeing that freedom, it just makes me grateful of the work that I've put in to eliminate a lot of these external attachments that I've had that have caused me to need to work harder, get frustrated when they're out of stock. All these things that now it's like I could walk by it and I just do not care, and that feels super good.
I was telling Courtney today, bro. I was like, I actually recognize that if I stop spending money, I could keep doing the things I love to do. like without being like, oh, I gotta make some extra money in order to get it done. I could just go out and help people. I can go out and talk to people and see how they're doing. I can see what's going on in their life. I can just have conversations with them. If that leads to clients, great, fantastic. But ultimately, wanting to like share the gift of knowing that your thoughts aren't everything, that their pride and ego are actually the downfall of I don't want to say the downfall of society, bro. That's going a little far. But let's back off of that one. uh, but man, like just ultimately, man, I think the whole conversation about pride, about correct reason, about just all the things that we talked about today, man, is ultimately is important to each and every one of our lives. So, you got any closing thoughts for us? I mean, just as we get out of here.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see that just looking in this direction frees us up more and more and more. And it's just like life keeps getting better, even though external circumstances might not change. Your experience of that, if you love your story, you love your life, you start dropping a lot of these negative judgments of the world, right? The world happens and I got a problem with it. Well, if the world happens and you don't have a problem with it, would that be more happiness? I mean, it would have to, right? It's like, okay, this happened. Now what can we do about it? And that's where I tend to find myself focusing a lot of attention these days.
Thanks, Jason, for opening up and sharing a little bit. I was over here messing with this little AI companion over here. AI is gonna take over the world, bro. I don't know, like that whole Skynet thing. Hey, let me be on y'all side, whatever. Don't take me out. But man, like I said earlier, we would love to start doing this more frequently, just to get the message out about you don't have to stress in life, worry, anxiety. Those things can be alleviated just through recognition of thought. There's a little bit more behind it. If you need a coach, somebody to go with you, or need a friend, you could reach out to Jason or myself. That's always available. He's at Ultra Ability. He's got several videos out. He's got a podcast out as well. You should definitely check that out. Great content, especially if you're a stoic or if you're like in that realm, you like that type of information. Jason's got you because he does more studying than I know. I do a lot of studying myself. This guy here, man, it's next level. So he knows his stuff. He knows what he's talking about, and you should check him out. Thank y'all for stopping in. Jason, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, man.